When I first announced about a month ago that we were going to be preaching on Coldplay, a member of our church, Chelsea, came running up after the service and said, "This is so amazing, the two things that I love the most in my life, God and Coldplay." She said, "Coldplay is the soundtrack of my life." And then in the 5 minutes or so that we talked, she was able to share a little bit about how this song applied here and this song spoke to her here. And the one part of that story that she told me was how one song, a song called "Fix You," was so important to her and how it carried her in the time after her father had died prematurely, had committed suicide. And I looked up the words to that song again yesterday and thought, how can this not hold you and carry you and love you in a time like that? When you try your best but you don't succeed, when you get what you want but not what you need, when you feel so tired but you can't sleep, stuck in reverse, and the tears come streaming down your face when you lose something you can't replace, when you love something, love someone, but it goes to waste, could it be worse? And then the chorus, "Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you." And after that conversation with her, we spent a whole week just sending these massive, well, mostly I asked one question, and then she sent me a wonderful, thoughtful response to the question, talking about what is it about Coldplay? And when I asked that question specifically, she responded in part by saying, "Listening to Coldplay music, something happens. My soul becomes alive, and the pain of my broken heart subsides, and I feel hope and peace, joy, but mostly hope." And it's funny, I'm just talking to two people as the opening DVD's going, and they're going, "There's something about this music, it's almost angelic," the one woman says, and there's heavenly. How can that not be to God, or from God? And for Chelsea, I learned, reading her whole email, she sees these songs, the truth, the beauty, the hope, the joy in them, as being authored by God. Now, can you imagine a God that would be so powerful and so everywhere that he would choose to sing to you and meet you and love you wherever you're at through a song, on the radio? Can you imagine a God that is that creative, that tender, and so passionate about speaking to you and whispering to you by his Spirit, that he would do that exactly where you're at, in exactly the perfect way so that you can hear it in that moment. And not even with a lot of self-recognition, just a subtle whisper, because you're you. And look at how my stars shine for you, and I do anything for you. Imagine, can you imagine that kind of God? Now doing it through Coldplay for millions of souls around the world. The earth is yours and everything in it. Psalm 24, verse 1. All truth is God's truth if it's really truth. And every human being is made in your image. And every one of those 4 human beings are made in your image. And you are sovereign. And God is providentially holding everything in creation by his Spirit. And you are all powerful. And you move all over the face of the earth. Can you imagine a God who speaks through Coldplay? Listen to how lead singer Chris Martin speaks of where he finds his inspiration. Gary Strom, our music guy, found this in a June 2008 Rolling Stone interview. The interviewer asks, "What was the breakthrough song for you? When did you become sure that this wasn't just a college band?" And Martin responds, "Well, everybody's always living in fear of their trick being discovered, So there's never a moment where I think, yep, that's it. We're a world-class band and no one can take it away from us. But as soon as that song Yellow appeared, I was like, okay, this sounds like a big single to me. Let's go. And then the interviewer asks, it's funny you say appeared. You wrote it. And Martin responds, the bad songs come from me and my knowledge of how to write songs. And the good ones come from somewhere. I have no idea where. And they tend to sort of be flying around at 2 o'clock in the morning. You just have to be there to catch it. That's how I feel about the good ones. And the day Gary showed me that quote, I was studying up on Dylan for last week, and I just read that morning this quote about Bob Dylan saying where he gets his inspiration from. The songs, quote, are there. They exist all by themselves, just waiting for someone to write them down. I just put them on paper. If I didn't do it, someone else would. Then the quote goes on to quote a friend of his saying that, and he believed God gave him all of his songs. And when I read that, I was reminded of what Vincent van Gogh said when he painted all of his beautiful yellowish paintings. I do not invent the whole picture, said Van Gogh. On the contrary, I find it already in nature, only it must be disentangled. It's already there. Which reminded me of what I'd read in an obituary from a fiddler, Canadian fiddler named Oliver Schroer, who died a few months ago. And he's quoted in his obituary as saying, I don't write music. I catch it as it goes by. It's all floating by for the taking. And all of those quotes reminded me of what I'd read in an essay written by Dr. Trevor Hart about an old 150-year-old preacher named George MacDonald, who said, everything of man must have been of God first. So what the poet creates, he really only finds. The patterns that are already present in the mind of God, awaiting our discovery. And MacDonald, who was hugely read by Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, Dorothy Sayers, all these big Christian writers of the past, he would say that unless you have the imagination for it, you can't even see it. And all of those quotes reminded me of the first time I had my Coldplay epiphany experience when I was, did I ever mention that I cycled across Canada? Somewhere in northern Ontario, and was really into Van Gogh at the time, so all the yellow, especially the little yellow flowers on the useless weeds in the ditch, every one seemed to just scream out that God was there. Van Gogh, he said when he painted yellow, he was painting the presence of the divine in the world. And so I was seeing yellow, halfway across the country, and then somewhere in northern Ontario, I was writing about that, and then I'd gotten up at night and went out to go to the washroom, and I looked up, and the stars, it was like a Van Gogh painting. It was like that one, right? And there was a yellowish hue, and it was so bright and so beautiful. It was like I was standing before the face of God and thinking about yellow and what Van Gogh had to say about the presence of God. So I wrote that in my blog, and then the next day, a friend, Ann Jeanette, comments on the blog, you got to listen to this Coldplay song, Yellow. And so I listened to the song, and I relive the memory of that sky. And I start crying because it's like God singing. Did you catch it when we sang it? It's like he could be singing it to you. I came across an ocean for you. I play the song.